Hello again, and this is part 3 of session 5 on the short story element of point of view. In this part of the session, we're going to do together the short story The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. We're going to explore the short story element of point of view in this short story. Before we get started with that, I would like to give you an outline as how we're going to cover this part of the session. We're going to start with an introduction about Edgar Allan Poe, and then we'll follow that with a summary of the plot. I'll give you a summary of the plot, and after that I will explore the short story element of point of view in the short story, what kind of narrator we have, and the different characteristics of this kind of narrative, and whether they apply to the short story or not. And then we're going to follow that with some discussions of the motives and motivations of the characters, especially the nameless narrator, the murderer, and whether he has reasons enough to kill the old man. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to follow that with discussions of the themes and ideas coming out of all the discussions and the debates around the different techniques used, the different ideas promoted. Okay, so let's go straight to Edgar Allan Poe, and like I said, the reason why, and I insist on that, the reason why we always start with some kind of introduction about the author is that I'm trying to develop in you the habit of reflecting on the name of the author, thinking deeply about the name of the author before you start the experience of reading the short story itself. The reason why we are doing that is that the likelihood that we're familiar with the author from previous encounters may be very high. So you need to think of the author, and if you happen to have read him or her before, you can always think of what kind of style he normally adopts, what kind of themes he promotes and presents, and stuff like that. Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe, as one of his readers, myself, if I'm in a position to talk about him, I'm going to say a lot of stuff. The reason why, because I have read him before. Okay, so Edgar Allan Poe is an American short story writer. He lived between 1809 and 1849, and he has a very distinguished place in the history of the short story. Actually, he is one of the major contributors to the short story. He innovated, and he is. He came up with a number of techniques that now short story writers are using. Like, for example, the idea of single effect. We'll talk about this idea in a minute. Let me share with you some of his known works. Like I said, he is, among other things, a poet. He wrote The Raven and The Bells, and he also wrote a very famous short story, The Fall of the House of Usher. These are very famous classics of short story. The Fall of the House of Usher is a classic short story. Okay, whenever we are trying to recommend a short story that is that promotes this singularity of effect, that talks about detectiveness and talks and addresses mystery and murder cases, we normally recommend this short story for the reader. Okay. So let me share with you some of the characteristics of his work. Okay, so his work, most of his work actually revolves around the idea of death and the burial of corpses, and this right away invokes ideas of Gothicism, you know. I mean, people are saying that he is part of the Gothic traditions of writing. Gothic novels and Gothic short stories are primarily about death and the smell of death, about I mean, murder cases in big deserted, uninhabited palaces where women are normally put at disadvantage, where we have sometimes we have even vampires and ghosts and stuff like that. He is actually part of this tradition by virtue of the short stories that he writes. I mean, the short stories that he wrote or writes are normally about just that, about death and about the burial of I mean, corpses, like we're going to see in the short story that we have today. The Telltale Heart is about just that. We have death, we have the smell of death, and we have also a corpus that the perpetrator of the crime is trying to hide under the floor boards, like we're going to see. And in his work, I mean, I'm talking about Edgar Allan Poe still. The ordinary world takes a back seat, and it makes way to the world of the mind. He normally explores the mind of man and tries to try to think of its intricacies and its complexities and also its irrationality. Okay, this is also one of the the ideas that he normally promotes and talks about much. And of course, again, the idea of single effect, the singularity of effect, is one. He is known for actually for this feature. Okay, he believes very much in the idea of a single effect. The short story should have only one single effect, and the short story writer shouldn't be busying himself and preoccupying himself with so many issues and ideas and so many techniques. And in the interest of this singularity of effect, lots of details are compromised, are sacrificed and gotten rid of, like we're going to see in the short story. Okay, we'll talk about this single effect kind of thing when later, and we're going to go even to page 126 and read something that is quoted for him about just that, and we're going to apply this to a part of the short story as well. So this is as far as Edgar Allan Poe, his biography and his biography are concerned. Now let's move to a summary of that plot. So again, in the interest of this singularity of effect kind of thing that Edgar Allan Poe is after, lots of details are compromised. The details that Edgar Allan Poe is focusing his attention and energies on is the idea of the perfect crime, the calculations that the murderer, who happens to be also the narrator, is making for the murder to be complete and perfect and waterproof. Okay, so other than that, we're not giving so many details. So the story, in very simple terms, concerns the unnamed narrator, who is a kind of psychopath. He is deranged. He is, as we're going to find out later, he is crazy or mad, in the sense that Of course, we don't have, the details that we normally have, the perfect traditional setting where you have an introduction of the characters and some hints about what may happen ahead, foreshadowing, and some detailed talk about the place and stuff and the time. We don't have this in short story. We start the short story quite in the middle of it, okay, when the narrator is obviously narrating or is admitting the fact that he has murdered an old man, and he's obviously he is talking to maybe an inspector or a prison warden, or a journalist, and he's telling him the story of the murder and how he schemed and calculated it. And obviously, he insists on the fact that he is sane, he is not crazy, and in order to prove that which is very ironic, of course, in order to prove how sane he is, he gives very meticulous details about the stages that he took preparing for the murder, and of course by these revelations we get to know that he is guilty of the murder. So it's very ironic that in defending your sanity, you prove that you are a criminal and a murderer. So again, the short story is primarily about the nameless narrator who is now narrating or telling an inspector about the murder that he committed. He obviously killed an old man, and when he was asked about the reasons why he killed the man, actually he was not even asked, or he was not even prompted to say what he said. He was trying, like I'm telling you, he was bent on proving to everyone that he was sane. Okay, so one of the things that he said was that he had no previous animosity or hatred towards the old man. It was only one of the eyes of the old man. He believes, the narrator or the murderer believes that this eye was a vulture eye, and that's why he killed the old man. Simply because he hated his eye, one of his eyes, and this is of course very revelatory and very indicative of how deranged and how out of his mind he is. It's yet another proof that this man is not in his proper or in his right mind. Okay, so again he tells the story, and he goes into minute details about the days that he spent preparing, and the fact that it took him like 7 nights. Okay, and the fact that he made sure that while that he kills the man only when his vulture eye is open. You see. He then tells us later that after he killed the man and got ridden, after he had gotten ridden of the vulture eye by killing the man, he dismembered his body, and he had him or concealed his body under the floor, and started to act as if nothing happened. And after a while, 3 officers came over and they knocked on the door. There was this, some of the neighbors obviously heard some kind of screaming or screaming noise. He reported that to the police, and they came, And they came and they started to ask him, and he acted as if nothing happened, and he told them that it was all a nightmare that he was having, and the screaming was his own. Okay, they sat, and he because of he was so sure of himself. He invited them to like sit, and they started talking and talking, and only then he started to have a hallucination or hallucinatory session where he started to feel some kind of ringing in his ears, and this ring started to develop and became louder and louder. And he believed that the ring that he is hearing is no more than the heartbeat of the murdered old man. This is, of course, are all signs of madness and craziness. And it came a stage or a moment when he couldn't bear it or stand it anymore, and he confessed to the murder and spoke to the officers, and he said, "I did it all. Okay, uncover." And he started to help them uncover the corpse, and this was obviously the end of the short story. Lots of ideas, like I'm telling you. If you again look at the plot, you're going to find that we don't start with a normal introduction where you have a detailed setting where you know the characters and what kind of relationships they have binding them together. No, we don't have actually that. We don't have details about the character. We don't even know what kind of relationship binding the old man to the nameless narrator, the one who killed him. Obviously, we were not given this piece of information. Nobody talks about it in the narrative, and it is left to our own speculation. Some people are suggesting the fact that maybe the old man is a symbol. He can be a symbol of parental, he can be a father figure, and in this sense, the old man can be a symbol of parental surveillance. His eye is a symbol of parental surveillance, and the nameless narrator is obviously and correspondingly his son, and he is trying to get rid of this surveillance or this parental surveillance. Some other people are saying that maybe we have a master-slave kind of relationship where the nameless narrator, the murderer, is no more than a slave revolting against his master. You have this a typical image of slaves working under suffering under the yoke of the pressures of their masters and the torture, and maybe it can be a bit just that. Again, the reason why we're coming up with our own speculations and interpretations is that because Edgar Allan Poe, in the interest of the singularity of effect, he compromises, a lot of his details are compromised, and one of them is the relationship between the old man and the nameless narrator. What else about this? Again, so we start in the middle, where we have the details that we have are all revolving around the preparation for the murder, the plan. And we have so meticulous details about that, which is again proving what Edgar Allan Poe is trying to say about the singularity of he is now in this part, and in providing very minute details about the perfect crime and the preparation for it, is giving us an example of this singularity of effect that he was promoting. So the singularity of effect here, or the effect that he is trying to create here, is the atmosphere of horror, the atmosphere of mystery about the again the relationship between the two, okay, and the lack of motives, and okay, because you normally if you're you're not in your right mind, you don't behave in a justifiable way, okay. You have to have reasons to hate or to kill somebody, okay. If you don't have reasons, people are going to describe your act as crazy and mad and stuff, okay. So this again helps towards achieving this singularity of effect that the writer is after. So two things that the writer or Edgar Allan Poe is using in order to achieve this singularity of effect. The first thing is that he gives us minute details about the crime, how the nameless narrator is preparing for it for 7 long nights, and then also the idea that we don't have proper motivations or motives as why he is killing the old man, okay. So again, the two of them are used in order to give us this atmosphere again of horror, of craziness, of eeriness, okay. Okay. So this is as far as the plot is concerned, and we also spoke about the different the relationship between the two people, the murderer and the man who gets murdered. Let me now look at the narrative voice here. Let me talk to the point of view part of the session. Again, if you look at the short story, you're going to find that it is judging, visually, like I said, in order to explore the point of view, the first thing that you would do is to try to find visual clues as what kind of point of view you have. If you skim through the different pages of the short story, you're going to find that the I and the we and the I and me, okay, and my feature very prominently in the short story, which is an indication that we have the point of view is first person. So we have first person narrative, okay. So what kind of first person narrator we have? Do we have an objective narrator who is detached, who is acting as a detached observer, does not interfere and stuff like that? No, actually, the narrator here is again first person narrator, and he is involved in the action because he is one of the primary characters. You have obviously the two the two main characters here are the narrator and the old man, and of course the 3 officers who came over later, okay. So the first, so you have the again the first person narrative, okay, where you have the nameless narrator telling the story using the I pronoun, okay, and through the revelations of the narrator, through his actions, through what he reveals over time, we're going to find that he is no more than a deranged narrator, a crazy or a mad narrator, okay? Somebody that you cannot trust, trust with ideas. You cannot take whatever he says for granted. You need to question what he says. When you get to know at the end of the short story that he is crazy, that he is mad and deranged, you need to reconsider your ideas and thoughts about the short story. You are even invited to go all the way back and read the short story afresh. Okay, so when you read it the first time, you don't make any judgment. Initial judgments. You leave it all to the narrative, and then you come up with ideas based on whatever is on the printed page. Okay, and this is what we have done. Okay, it is true that we know that Edgar Allan Poe is known for his crazy narrators and crazy stuff, but you still suspend your disbelief, as it were. Okay, you try to read and you don't make early judgments about the narrative, and then over time, towards the end, lots of conclusions are made, and then based on these conclusions, you need to go all the way back and read the short story afresh. And this is what we actually did. Okay. Towards the not towards the end. It has been known all through that we are in front of a psychopathic character, somebody who is murdering somebody else for no obvious reasons, and this is a reason and enough for us to assume that he is not normal, that he is abnormal, that he is crazy and mad. Okay, so the kind of narrator that we have here is what we call the unreliable narrator, a narrator that you shouldn't be taking what he says for granted, a narrator that you need to dispute his conclusions and his judgments about things. Okay. So what else about these short stories? So before we finish this part, I would like I promised you, to go to the idea of singularity of effect, the single effect kind of thing or idea that Edgar Allan Poe is known for, is reputed for. Okay, if Chekhov, for example, is known to have challenged the rigid classification of the short story into beginning and middle and an end, Edgar Allan Poe is reputed and is known for introducing the idea of a single effect. According to him, everything in the short story should serve towards achieving and creating this single effect. And the single effect that we can initially think of in the short story, now that we have read it, is of course the effect of horror. He is known to have been very busy and preoccupied with this idea, the idea of horror. Okay, and in the interest of creating this atmosphere of horror in his short stories, lots of details, some of them are very important, get compromised and sacrificed. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read to you part of his definition and explanation of this singularity of effect kind of thing, and then we're going to read an extract from the short story that can prove that he is practicing what he is preaching in terms of the singularity of effect. If you have the book handy, it's page 126. When you go all the way to page 26, you will have him, Edgar Allan Poe, talking about this technique, about this single effect thing, and then after that we will talk about, we're going to have an extract, like I told you, that can prove this idea. Let me read this part for you, and then after that we can always discuss it. Okay, so what is he saying about this single kind of effect thing? So a skillful literary artist has constructed a tale. If wise, he has not fashioned his thoughts to accommodate his incidents. In other words, the writer should come up with a thought, an effect, and then write the incidents that would fit that effect. But having conceived with deliberate care a certain unique or single effect to be wrote out, he then invents such incidents. He then combines such events as may best aid him in establishing this preconceived effect. If his very initial sentence tends not to the outbringing of this effect, then he has failed in his first step. Okay, this is a quotation taken from one of his, obviously, it can be a book or an interview that he had. Okay, if we let's try to unpack the definition. Okay, so he is, in order for you as a short story writer to be a skillful literary artist, according to him, in order for you to be skillful and wise, you shouldn't be having thoughts and then you accommodate. You start having incidents. He's saying he has not fashioned his thoughts to accommodate his incidents. You don't start with the incidents and then you try to put them together when a thought comes. A thought comes afterwards. No, according to him, this is wrong. You should have an idea in mind, and then you start having a number of incidents that can be put together to help highlight this kind of thought. So if wise, he has not fashioned his thoughts to accommodate his incidents. The writer should come up with a thought. This is number one. Okay, so number one is the writer should come up with a thought, an effect, and then write the incident that would fit the effect. Okay, it's not the other way around. You don't start with incidents and then after that you bring a thought to them, you bring life to them. No, you start with a thought and then you think of incidents that can help the thought materialize, as it were. But having conceived with deliberate care a certain unique or single effect to be wrote out, he then invents such incidents. He then combines such events as may best aid him in establishing the preconceived effect. Okay, so you have a thought, okay, that you are envisioning is going to bring about a certain effect. Okay, so a thought bringing about a certain, establishing and bringing about a certain effect. In order to reach this effect, you need to afterwards bring in a number of events or incidents that can help you achieve this kind of effect. If his very initial sentence tends not to be to the outbringing of this effect, then he has failed in his first step. And he also recommends that this drive towards the singularity of effect should start with the first sentence of the short story. So the first sentence of the short story, according to Edgar Allan Poe, should contribute towards achieving the single effect that will later materialize, okay? Unless he starts very early, according to Edgar Allan Poe, the writer is a failure, fails in his endeavors, okay? Let's now move to an extract from the short story and see whether this is happening in the short story. I'm going to give you the first few lines, okay? And then we're going to watch out about the two things, okay? The first thing, whether we can have clues at what kind of effect he's going to try to promote throughout the short story, okay? And the second thing would be whether the first sentence can promises that this kind of effect is in view or not, okay? So let's read the first paragraph of the story. So true, nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous, I had been and am. But why? Well, you say that I'm mad. The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. Okay, so obviously the atmosphere that is the writer is trying to create is an atmosphere of what? It's very strange. Somebody is trying to defend himself against something. Okay, so obviously you have an atmosphere. It's not a normal atmosphere. Okay, when you start this way, when you start with somebody talking about how dreadfully nervous he was, so obviously something is wrong. Something will prove wrong throughout and later. Okay, we're talking about a disease that sharpens the senses. Okay, so you have a sense of morbidity, you have a sense of decay, disease, nervousness, dreadfulness. Okay, these are all contributory factors that contribute towards creating an atmosphere of fear and horror and dread. Okay, I want you to look at the first sentence again and see whether it can promise this effect or not. So true, nervous, very, very dreadful nervous I had been and am. So why would you be nervous unless you have done something wrong, unless you have, so you don't feel nervous unless you have reasons to be nervous. Obviously nervousness is a negative feeling that is normally associated with wrongdoing and crimes and stuff, right? Think of somebody going on a stealing trip, some criminal, and he wants to steal money. Obviously he's not going to be happy and pleasant and all. He until he achieves or accomplishes the mission, he will be nervous and uncomfortable and stuff like that. Okay, so again, this extract proves very much that Edgar Allan Poe is actually practicing what he is preaching. So what he preached was the singularity of effect, and he is practicing just that in the short story that we are having. Okay, the first sentence can sum up the whole idea, can tell us a great deal about what will happen or what would happen ahead. Okay, with this item and on this note, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you very much and goodbye.